Most landlords require anyone renting from them to obtain renter's insurance. Most renters believe that this is just another cost that makes renting even more expensive. But as today's guest expert Earl Jones points out, renter's insurance is really a powerful tool to protect yourself as a renter. This topic is yet another one of those things that wasn't covered in school that you'll need right away when you enter the real world. We're covering the real value of renter's insurance, and this is Renter Confidential. Hi, welcome to the Renter Confidential podcast. I'm your host, Justin Pogue, and today we have the distinct pleasure of having Mr. Earl Jones, who is actually a licensed insurance agent, and not just in one state, Missouri, Arizona, Oklahoma, Florida, and he was also licensed in the state of California. So he is bringing a multi-state perspective to our discussion today, which is going to be on renter's insurance. Now, I know all of you are not really jazzed about paying a lot of money for renter's insurance, but there are some specific things that I wanted to bring to light in this particular episode about renter's insurance, why it's so important, and what it does for you, and the interesting tidbits that you should be thinking about in terms of renter's insurance that your landlord is never going to mention to you until after the fact, where they'll say, oh, you should have had this or you should have had that. Not unlike when your friends are giving you directions and they say, oh, you should have turned there. So we're going to try and avoid that. And we are going to welcome Earl to the show. So welcome, Earl.
Hey, Justin Polk, how are you?
I am doing well. Yes. Earl and I
looking
met a number of years ago. We won't say how many. And we are continuing that relationship today.
Yes, you looking good. You on a vegan diet or something?
So I just actually finished a diet, and we're down 40 pounds from where we were. So yeah, we are trying to tap into that fountain of youth as best we can.
Okay, keep on tapping. Keep on tapping.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about renter's insurance, and just for the sake of those who are uninitiated, what does renter's insurance actually cover for people?
Okay, so as a person who owns an insurance agency, who got started in the state of California and have sold a crap load of renter's insurance, trying not to answer this question very insurance-y speak. Renter's insurance is that one policy that protects the interest of the rentor. And that policy protects the rentor in the event of a fire, a break-in, a sudden pipe burst. And what it protects is everything that renter brought into that house and or will accumulate over time. It also protects that renter from, like, if they get sued because their dog nipped at the heels of a retired roller derby person, right? Yes. It also protects that renter in the event that there is unexpected property damage, if they're responsible for some property damage. Like, let's say the renter was cooking and was on the phone talking to their mother, and the conversation got a little crazy, and now there's a kitchen fire. Renter's insurance can protect that renter, even though the landlord's insurance will kick in for the property damage, but the landlord's insurance will come after the renter's insurance instead of coming after the individual, provided that there's enough coverage on that renter's policy. That's what it in a big nutshell. It's a scaled down version of homeowners insurance for people who rent.
Gotcha. Well, your answer kind of ties into the next question I had, which was we've had this whole period of like crazy inflation, and the cost of everything has gone up. what implications does that have for renters insurance? Should people be thinking about having more coverage, or are there certain types of coverage that people should be thinking about now that they didn't really think about before?
Ooh, that is a very good question. That really will depend on what state you are in. But for the most part, people need to make sure on their renter's insurance, number one, that they have enough content. That's their personal items, their bowling balls, their TVs, their hoops and ladders and all that other stuff. Everything that they moved into that house. They need to make sure that that renter's insurance policy can at least get them started at a new place. That's number one. Number two is what's called extra expense. A lot of companies now are just, given 1 to 2 to 5% of the content. So if your content coverage is $10,000, you'll only get $1,000 for extra expense, which is money that will be paid to you to go stay somewhere else until your place is ready to move back in.
Oh, okay.
Extra expense. Now, the challenge that and then the third one, is liability exposure. Nobody that rents anywhere in the United States should ever have less than $300,000 in liability exposure. Because again, a renter can be sued if their bowling buddy comes over, gets drunk, and falls off the patio. Yes, those big three things. And then the fourth thing when it comes to renter's insurance, if the renter has like a brand new $5,000 gaming computer, well, no renter's insurance policy is going to cover that entirely. So they would put that on a personal article policy in order to make sure it's covered. And the last thing they need to double check is to make sure that the renter's insurance covers them wherever they travel, at least in the United States, to include when things are stolen out of their car.
Oh. So renter's insurance covers items that may be stolen out of their car, and it's not the auto insurance that covers something like that.
Very well said. If somebody stole your fake mink that you bought on sale from Goodwill out of the back seat of your beat up 1995 Honda Accord, baby, only thing you're getting from the auto insurance company, if you have comprehensive coverage, is just enough money to replace the glass in that car.
Okay.
Your personal items only are covered either under your homeowner's insurance, renter's insurance, or personal article policy.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
But there are a few small insurance companies out there that will allow personal articles, personal property, to be covered under the auto insurance. You just have to ask.
Okay. Okay. So they don't volunteer that information.
Hell to the no. Let me be blunt. A lot of the stuff that I've discovered about insurance is because I'm in the industry. But before I was in the industry, I didn't even know a tenth. I was just like everybody else, just focus on how much am I paying every month.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm in the industry, ain't no way in hell I would focus just solely on price, because I could literally write a person a homeowner's, renters, or life insurance policy based upon their price and not really give them anything for coverage.
Gotcha. So you mentioned having having personal article insurance. Is that an entirely separate policy, or is that something like a rider on my renter's insurance policy?
Good question. So it can be a rider, an endorsement on the renter's insurance policy if you have a big ticket item, like let's say you are renting and you have a Rolex that your dad gave you.
Okay.
Or you're still renting, but you guys bought a $15,000 diamond ring to get married. You can request that the renter's insurance cover those items as long as you have proof of the value, such as a paid receipt and/or an appraisal. But I do not recommend that people do that. I recommend that people get a personal article policy separate from the renter's insurance. Why? If there's a loss due to that item, let's say it's a $5,000 computer, and you file a claim on the renter's insurance, that claim on the renter's insurance will follow you for up to 7 years, sometimes 10, depending on state law. and could have an impact on your ability to get homeowners insurance, depending on your state law and what company you are with.
So situations that impact your renter's insurance will follow you when you look to get homeowners insurance later on.
Yes, I would like to say it does not. However, since I am putting my face and my voice to this, I'm going to say people need to be aware that if you file a claim on your renter's insurance, there's a high probability, more than likely, that it will follow you on your homeowner's insurance.
Okay, but with the personal article policy, it doesn't. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely. So if you got a person that's renting a 4-bedroom house, like in the suburbs, but they have like $15,000 in guns, believe it or not, there are a lot of people that do. I would tell that person, we're going to put the guns on this over here, the personal article policy, and we'll still write a renter's insurance policy for everything else.
Okay. See, that's why I talk to you about these things. So, because when you prepare a policy for somebody, you're looking at it from their perspective, not the policy that best lines your pocket.
Correct. I am thinking about a few things. Number one, what is in the best interest of the customer based upon their circumstances?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are buying, and you cannot do that. That's number one. Number two, the person that wrote you that insurance policy, whether it be a local agent or somebody on the phone, or you went on a website, that is not the individual that is going to determine if your claim is approved.
So who is that person?
It's a claims adjuster.
Okay.
So if your insurance agent wrote you a general basic renter's insurance policy that only covers fire if the house burns down or if the apartment burns down, but you had a sudden pipe burst in your apartment, your policy is not paying out at all.
Gotcha.
You're not covered.
Gotcha. So another topic I wanted to ask you is I've been hearing, like, in the apartment rental industry, that keeping up with whether the tenants have current renters insurance coverage and all of that tends to be a big hassle. You've got to get proof of coverage and all of that for each individual tenant. So some landlords have been getting these like umbrella renter insurance policies in lieu of doing all of that. And I wanted to kind of get your take on that. But I kind of have an idea of where you're already going to go, A, from the face that you're making, and B, you had talked about, the policies being based on the person's individual situation. So I just wanted to get your take on that and hear your response to a situation like that.
In the words of Aretha Franklin, honey, ain't no way. Ain't no way there is no way that I would let myself participate in something like that. Number one, I don't own that policy. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I don't know what the policy covers or doesn't cover. Number three, I don't know if that policy is written to cover the interest of the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no way in hell. Absolutely not. Whether child, no. Nope. Nope. Okay. If you got a landlord that's not willing to, if they require renter's insurance in their contract,
mm-hmm.
there's no law, to my knowledge, that says the landlord can force a person to get renter's insurance only from this company.
Mm-hmm.
There's none. Landlords basically, when it comes to renter's insurance, they have to follow the same law, to my knowledge, that mortgage companies follow when it comes to mortgage and, insurance on the home. The whatever we call those people, the people that bought the house can get homeowners insurance from wherever.
Right.
As long as the bill is paid, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy. But when the mortgagee stops paying that homeowner's insurance or something happens, then, the mortgage company gives them so many days to get insurance and then they force insurance. Now that's different. But honey, if I moved into an apartment building and the landlord told me that I had to go with the one that they had, I would look them right in the face and go, the devil is a lie. Let me call the Department of Housing and let me reach out to an attorney to drag their ass through court, because they're not entitled to do that by my understanding of law. Now, I ain't a law lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice, but can I cuss on this?
We,
And it's
we'll have this episode listed as one of those with some naughty words in it, so everybody knows beforehand.
Honey, this is not going to. Here's the thing, because those situations never ever work out for the interest of the tenant.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't. It absolutely does not. I'm just like, no, I wouldn't do it. I'd be like, well, bless your heart. I'm just going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. So now a lot of people who watch this show, they're not necessarily renting a house or an apartment. They may just be renting a room. So are there different things that they should be thinking about, given that they're just renting a room as opposed to a whole apartment or an entire house?
No, it doesn't matter whether you're renting a room or you're renting a mobile home or you're renting an apartment or whatever, because the renter's insurance doesn't necessarily cover the building itself. It just covers your stuff and your liability exposure. So it does not matter. But you also bring up another good point, though, which is this. Even as an adult, if you move back into your parents' house, I would still get renter's insurance. I would. When I moved back to St. Louis from college, I had renter's insurance the entire time I was staying with my parents at grad school. And then when I moved back in to be support with my mom when she was dealing with her stuff, I had renter's insurance. When I moved to St. Louis and I was staying with my sister, I had renter's insurance. Here's why. There's no guarantee that any of their homeowners' insurance policies would include my interest in the event of a claim. And they are not going to file a claim on my behalf against their policy if something happens to my stuff.
Gotcha. So, and that raises another question from my perspective, in that, so like, for example, with auto insurance, like if you have one vehicle and then you change vehicles, you need to notify your insurance company and they make adjustments to your policy because of the vehicle change. Right. So if I am renting in, say, San Jose, California, and then I move to Tampa, Florida, do I need to notify the insurance company that I've moved, and does that affect the amount or type of coverages that I'll have?
The answer to that question is yes and yes.
Okay.
Yes. You are part of the terms and conditions of all insurance policies sold in these United States is that you, the insured, the policy holder, will notify the insurance company of any address change, to include phone numbers, email addresses, as outlined in your policy. So if you had a policy in San Jose, hopefully the company that you are with also sells renter's insurance in the state of Florida. As you will call that company, say, hey, I'm moving to Florida. I take possession of my property, let's say on April 15th. They should keep your existing policy open between the time that you left California to move to Florida, because you still could be responsible for the property back in California. Plus, if you're professionally moving your stuff, your renter's insurance covers your stuff while in transit if you hired somebody to move, and depend on your company. And then when you get to Florida, that new policy should kick in on April 15th. The old one cancels April 15th as well.
Okay. And should I expect a different
rent increase? Absolutely.
Rate?
Yes.
Oh, I was going to say rate change. You just jumped right to increase.
You should expect a rate increase if you're moving to Florida, honey. Let me tell you. Yeah.
Well, now that brings up another question in that I've seen recently in the news that certain insurance companies are no longer going to be providing, for example, homeowners coverage in California for various reasons.
That's correct.
And some other states as well, like Florida with the hurricane risk and all of that. So my question is the renters insurance policy market affected in a similar way? Are companies talking about not covering renters insurance in certain states, similar to the homeowners policies?
Honey, let me tell you, there are so many ways I can answer that question. I could answer the question of, is a woman impacted if her man cheats and gets another woman pregnant? Yes, indeed. I mean, let me tell you something. When these insurance companies are pulling out of states, it impacts everything that when it comes to fire. So
Mhm.
your insurance is under that umbrella fire.
Okay.
So yes. So if they're not selling homeowners insurance in that state, they're not selling renters insurance in that state.
Hmm.
They are not. And people need to know something. Half of the problems that we are facing in the insurance industry is due to politics, but you didn't hear that from me. I want to gossip, but
But
half of the problems that we are dealing with in the insurance world is due to politics. Unfortunately, you just have one too many politician that does not want to believe in climate change. And so you have these inconsistency with building codes from state to state, county to county, city to city, that insurance, has to navigate and deal with.
Gotcha. So after one of the recent hurricanes that came through Florida, I saw that a number of insurance companies were interested in pulling out of that state, but they still wanted to provide auto insurance.
Totally different.
The state was like, no, if you're going to provide auto insurance, then you going to provide something as far as homeowners insurance as well.
Correct.
Was the state's response.
That is true. Yes. And then they just decided to say, screw it, just completely pulled out altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And then just said, completely forget it, and then pulled out altogether. And when that happens, the only people that are truly impacted are the constituents of that state.
Mm-hmm.
Because as the insurance options get smaller, premium goes up.
Mm.
And underwriting guidelines also increase as well, even for renters insurance.
Mm-hmm.
In some states, depending on the size of the property the person's getting renters insurance for, that house, for example, may have to meet certain underwriting guidelines just to get renters insurance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now here's another thought. So if I'm renting a house and I get renters insurance, how does that differ from a homeowner's policy?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. The difference is that the renter's insurance is not responsible for is not the main responsible party to the damage to the property.
Okay.
So if a sudden pipe burst in the house, that is covered by the landlord's insurance policy if they have the right type of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big if. However, all of the tenants' stuff that is damaged as a result of that sudden pipe bursting would be covered under their renter's insurance. If the tenant has to move out and stay at the Best Western or Motel 6 or go back to their mama's house, they'll get some change based upon the policy limits under extra expense in order to do that while the landlord is repairing the property for them to move back in.
Okay. Now, is that extra expense? Is that something that is included in the renters policy automatically, or do I have to request that specific endorsement to my policy?
in theory, it should be automatically included. However, for the sake of this podcast, which will be played all over the globe, ask, does this policy have extra expense and how much? And some companies will call it additional living expense. All it is the money that you'll get paid by the policy for you to go stay somewhere else. And don't expect it to be much these days. Back in the day, you could request to have it increased. But now companies are just saying, if you got $20,000 worth of coverage, like I said earlier, you'll just get a percentage of that content cover for extra expense.
And it's based on your contents coverage, not the ability coverage amount.
Yeah, just the contents covered. The amount of money that we agree to pay you if all of your stuff gets destroyed by a covered event, such as a fire, sudden pipe burst, the roof caves in for some crazy reason. Let me put back on my blue blockers.
All right. So now a lot of renters have pets, cats, dogs, what have you. So are there specific riders that I should add to my policy if I have a pet? And also, should I be thinking about having higher liability coverage, more than the 300,000 you mentioned earlier?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. And number one, if you have pets, please listen to me carefully. Please tell the insurance person or the agent, or if it's online that you have pets, please be upfront about that. Y'all would be amazed how many people that do not own properties, that have dogs or cats, that have bitten somebody and there's a claim, and then there's no coverage on the insurance policy because the person that got the cat or got the dog didn't disclose it. Now they are out of money to pay the person, even if it's a friend of theirs, for the medical bills, lost income because the person can't go to work or they're self-employed, whatever. Please be upfront. Now, when I get a renter application, I just automatically assume people have pets. I just automatically just add it in most cases, unless somebody tells me specifically they do not have pets. But I will tell them, if you get lonely in the middle of the night and you decide to get your ass up and go down to the animal shelter and pick up something that you can't return or should not return, or something that you need to walk around on a leash, and I'm not talking about somebody at the club, then you need to call the insurance company and say, I got me a four-legged friend. Know the breed. Just know that some insurance companies will still exclude my favorites, pit bulls, Doberman Pinschers, German Shepherds. Even though they're excluded, you're disclosing that you have it, and then they should be able to direct you to a pet liability company so that you have liability insurance for that pet. And yes, you do want to go higher than the standard 300,000. One, to make your landlord feel a little bit better. That's number one. Because even though you have a dog, depending on the circumstances, your landlord could be dragged into the mix. So yes, if somebody has a pet, I still start with 300,000. There have been times where, like, I will go up to 500,000 if they tell me they got like 3 dogs. I'm like, oh no, girl, you need 500,000 liability coverage. Or if the landlord is one of those people that requires renter's insurance, then I will do 500,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Because I know somebody's dog nipped at somebody's heels. And honey, let me tell you, did not have the right, renter's insurance in place. And that individual, now I can't say no names, but I will tell you that this is inspired by a true story. They had to write a check. And I ain't talking about 4 digits either. I ain't talking about 4 digits.
And those digits did not include cents.
No, they did not include cents, baby. And it was somebody that they knew. And they didn't expect that individual to go after them, but they did, because that dog drew blood. And that individual was like, oh, no, I can't tell y'all what they said, but I was like, I just sat there and I was like, I was thinking now this would be a good Shirley Brown song. Hello, Barbara. This is Shirley. We're like, the man you sleeping with, he's mine. From the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. The clothes he wear, I buy. The shoes on his feet, I paid for. The car he drive, I pay the note. Yes, honey. Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, we are.
And now we'll take a break for our sponsor, Apartment Search Secrets. This free book removes stress from your apartment search. The link is in the show notes below, and here's the trailer for this amazing free book. That new job you've been looking for finally came through. So you're taking on a new adventure in a brand new city, which all means one thing: packing. And the stress it brings. But you can drop all that stress for free with Apartment Search Secrets. With this short ebook at your side, you'll know your value as a renter. You'll know what the internet can't tell you. You'll see landlord problems coming a mile away. And you'll get the best perspective on your rental search. Visit rentalsecrets.net for your free copy today. And we're back.
Yeah. So we were talking about the pets and how the coverage should be if you have a pet, but that led me to another question. So we've just talked about kind of dogs in general, let's just say, but some people have what they call emotional support animals or seeing eye dogs and those kinds of things. So would your advice be the same for pets that are in those categories?
It would still be the same if you got a pet that can bite, destroy some shit. Oops. Then you need to let the insurance company know that's what you got. And yes, it is going to cost a little bit more on the policy, but it's also protecting you because in the event that that pet does bite somebody or cause property damage, you want to make sure that you have options besides writing a check like that one person I know did.
Yeah. So there was a property management company that I worked for. And when someone with a pet moved out, they would test the carpet in the entire apartment.
Oh.
And if they found evidence of pet urine anywhere in that carpet, they would then charge that person's security deposit for replacing carpet in the entire apartment. Is that something that renter's insurance can be used to cover?
No, now you went to a gray area. So the answer to that question, in that case, that's a big if. That's a big if. Because you got a landlord that is trying to claim that a pet peed in a corner and now they want to replace the whole carpet.
Right.
That's a big if. But in that case, a tenant would definitely want to make sure they have access to an attorney to fight that one. Because I'm like, I don't know no pet that does not accidentally pee at anything. None.
Right.
And to say that you got to replace the whole blessed carpet, child, now come on. Now that's a property management firm that is trying to take advantage of the general population's ignorance when it comes to landlord-tenant law. In my opinion. I said it. I put my name behind it. I said it.
Yeah. So now, and another related aspect is, the age of that carpet. So,
correct.
So let's say the carpet had what they consider to be a useful life of 5 years, let's say, and it's been down for 3, and now they're taking it up. They would replace the whole carpet, but now they would only charge you for the 2 remaining years of useful life. So instead of say $1,000, it would be $400. For example.
What state is this?
This was in California.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to say the name of the property manager. However, you know, being in the insurance industry has afforded me access to certain insights. And what I would say on that one is that if that was me, I would definitely be consulting an attorney and filing a complaint with the California Department of Housing, because something just doesn't seem right. There's wear and tear
Right.
on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance does not cover wear and tear, period. Not,
Gotcha.
just doesn't cover that. So for a landlord, in my opinion, to do that, again, I just think that landlord or property manager is pushing the envelope way too far. And those people, if they got the right one that was smart enough to like hire an attorney to investigate that and to look into that, oh, they would, because then now their liability insurance would have to come in and defend against them for doing some shady shit. And I can tell you, I know some people that got sued as landlords in the state of California and had to fork out over $250,000. And their insurance company did not cover the bill at all. Retroactively canceled their policy back to the original date that the policy was purchased. Yes. And we're not talking purchase 2 years ago. We're talking purchase like 15 years ago, retroactively canceled all the way back to the date. So they had so the company completely washed their hands. My advice to any landlord listening to this, let me be blunt when I tell you this. If you are not working with an attorney that is very versed in the real estate and the landlord tenant laws of your city or county and state, you are operating at a deficit, in my opinion, because these insurance companies that are issuing out renters insurance, oh, they're prepared to fight a landlord tooth and nail over some shit.
So kind of at the beginning of the episode, we kind of talked about the different states that you've had experience selling insurance in. So have there been any surprises that any things that have surprised you as far as, selling renters insurance in these different states?
Well, in Missouri, depending on what insurance company I'm placing a person for renters insurance, if the property is less than 4, if it's greater than 4 units, I don't have to go out and take photos. If it's less than 4 units, I have to go out and take photos of the property, front, back, left, right, side. And if that property is not maintained by the landlord, the tenant could face the possibility of not getting renters insurance. Some of these companies are now starting to look at the properties that they're placing renters insurance on, which I'm like, damn, like it's getting that much more scrutiny as especially in states that are known for storms and a lot of weather damage caused. A lot of companies are starting to look at these properties, and I'm just like, I was not expecting that. I was not. Like, that's number one. And the rates have gone up on the renters insurance. And they are being a lot more stricter in terms of coverage. They're still providing the general coverage, but they're being very strict on what they're doing. So
when you say strict, things that they used to include automatically, they're no longer including automatically?
No, not including it automatically. They are making sure that the policy meets the requirements as outlined by state law in terms of at least covering fire, liability. But now on the liability portion, some companies are allowing people to choose not to have liability, zero, or down to as low as $500 in liability, depending on what company it is. Whereas before, in the past, it was default $100,000, and then you can increase it.
Right.
Now I'm like, what?
So now you have to, if you want more than the minimum, then you have to ask for the 100,000, or you have to ask for the 300,000, or you have to
Right.
ask for the
500,000 or $1 million if some people offer it.
Mm.
Oh yeah, it is definitely different from when I started in the insurance industry in 2017.
mm, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Which then raises an interesting question, because a lot of these agents don't necessarily volunteer ideas as far as what kind of coverage you need or how much coverage you need. They just, write a policy and give it to you.
Well, yes, unfortunately, but I'm a different breed because I've had renter's insurance since undergrad years when I was in Clarksville, Tennessee at Austin Peay State University. Go P, not to the bathroom, but PEAY, right? I had renter's insurance then. I've always had renter's insurance ever since I was living on my own.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've always had it. I refuse. If I'm staying somewhere longer than a trip, like 30 days, I'll just get renter's insurance and pay for it, by month for that location. Or I'll make sure that my current policy knows that, hey, I want to make sure because I'm going to be staying here. Am I good to go?
And that raises another interesting point too, because now you have people who are, for example, traveling nurses. They're going to be somewhere for a month or 4 months or something like that. And then they're going to be moving on to another location. So knowing that you can actually get renter's insurance for a period of a month, or like if you're going to be at an Airbnb for a month or something like that,
Correct.
that you have an option to get it for just that period of time.
Because most companies allow you to pay by month. So you just you just pay by month, and then
or you just cancel when you're done with it.
Correct. And if you're with a big enough company that's nationwide, then you just go, hey, I'm moving here. I need the renter's policy there. I'm going here. I need the renter policy there. They'll let you do it.
Okay.
Please. Absolutely. I sure would.
No, but I mean, I'm sure there was no one who was getting an Airbnb for a month that's thought about getting renter's insurance.
They needed the most
time.
Well, if they already have, for example, so somebody's getting an Airbnb if they're, for a month, for example. Now, if they have homeowner's insurance, they should definitely make sure that their homeowner's insurance knows, hey, I am going to be staying at this Airbnb for a month. They need to ask that question. They need to have that conversation, because a lot of people don't know the standard homeowner's insurance has a vacancy clause, which means that house cannot be vacant. For some companies, it's 30 days. Some companies, it's 45 days. So these people that are out here traveling the world with the homeowner's insurance and their house is sitting vacant, they got another thing coming. If a major claim happens. And if people don't think that the claims adjusters are not out there talking to the next door neighbor, offering them donuts and coffee, y'all are sadly deceived. Sadly deceived.
So another question just came to me, and this is something that's been in the news recently, is this whole discussion of squatters. And
now, Jesus, don't get me started. Because a lot of but here's the reality. Now, here's the extra T. A lot of people buy a standard home owner's insurance, move out the house, don't call the insurance company and say, hey, I've moved out. I'm getting ready to sell this house, or I'm getting ready to fix this house up. Don't say a damn word to the insurance company. Then a squatter moves in. Squatter destroys the house. They ain't got shit coming. Not a thing. Because they violate the vacancy clause. A lot of homeowners insurance policies do not automatically include vandalism and mischievousness at all. unless you ask for it. A lot, like it is. People just need to stop. The best. And I hate to give advice, but the best thing I can tell anybody is don't assume. Just because your mama bought insurance when you was a child, and just because you bought insurance 15 years ago, honey, you don't know shit about insurance. Even if you are licensed, I'm licensed in multiple states. I am still learning new things about insurance. But there's one thing that I will tell anybody on this podcast, even I will tell it in front of a judge, in front of Jesus, Martha Stewart, Betty Crocker, whoever. If you vacate that, if that house is vacant, then some policies, some companies, some states allow 30 days. You have avoided that policy. And a lot of policies do not have mischief and vandalism, which is what squatters would do to the house. That ain't covered. And if you are going to be traveling long distance for a long period, I'm sorry, not long distance, but a long period of time, either get somebody to babysit in that house, sit in that house, or convert your policy over to a vacant policy. So that way you have coverage. You can always change it when you get back.
Gotcha.
But a lot of people just assume, they just go and just think they have coverage. And then when shit hits the fan, they're standing there looking like Boo Boo the Fool, thinking that claims adjuster is going to automatically approve that claim. Absolutely. Because your next door neighbor, Betty, she dropped the T on you. She dropped the T. It happens all the time. The only difference is that we can't publicize the claims payouts. It happens all the time. And when I was in California in my agency, I would ask the people, like, I would tell people, if you are traveling longer than 30 days, 45 days back, then that policy gave a 45-day vacancy. I need to know so I can convert that over to a vacant policy. Otherwise, when you get back, honey, on day 46, if somebody broke into your house and stole all your stuff, you were just SOL. You just up a creek without paddle. Ain't nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
And
so now from the renter's policy standpoint, if I'm traveling, I'm away from my rental home, but I still have contents there. Is there a vacancy period of time that applies to that as well?
Most of the times there is not. However, I would double check because things have changed. So because the landlord's policy typically covers the vacancy period. And some landlord policies are up to 6 months, some are up to 90 days, some are 30 days, just all depends on the company. But it still does not hurt a renter to call their insurance company and say, hey, I'm traveling, I'm gone for 60 days. Is my shit good?
And does that vacancy period so if I'm gone for 30 days, I come back on day 31, does that 30 days then start again from that day? Or okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't ask me how they know that the only way that I can think of how they know that you've been gone is
Betty
because
next door.
Betty next door. We y'all be amazed at what the insurance companies will do to make sure that people are being in compliance with their policy terms and conditions.
Well, I'd imagine that electricity usage would also
correct
be an indicator.
That is also an indicator. Correct. Yes. And y'all think that those companies don't willy-nilly give up that information? Oh, they totally do. It's nothing. Remember, insurance companies have lawyers. It's not that difficult to subpoena somebody's utility records. And it's not that difficult for an insurance company to send a third-party company out to inspect the property and see that you've been gone.
Gotcha. Yeah.
It ain't that hard. Yeah. But it happens throughout these United States, and then people are shocked when, the biggest things that most people fail to do is notify the insurance company of changes. And part is because we have People are so conditioned to worry about how much they're paying for in price for the insurance versus thinking about the coverage.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of as we wrap up our conversation here, what tidbits of information would you leave with our rental audience about renters insurance?
Even if you're living with your mama, get it. That's number one. Number two, bundle your renter's insurance with your auto insurance. A lot of people be sleeping on this one, baby. A lot of folks don't know that you can actually reduce the cost of your auto insurance if you bundle your renters and auto insurance together. That's number one. Number two. Number three, if you are living with roommates that you are not doing the nasty with, and you're not married to them, get your own separate renter's insurance policy. I don't care if your name is on the lease agreement with them. You get your own shit. You do not get renter's insurance and think you are saving any money and by splitting it and putting all your names on it. Why? Because if John's laptop is stolen from the library and John files a claim against the renter's insurance, it impacts everybody that is listed on that policy. I don't care if you are boyfriend and girlfriend. If you are not married to that man or to that woman, you get your own renter's insurance. Okay? Y'all get your own shit. Get your own. Like, child. I'm just going to leave it at that. And then this is the other thing I would say too. Minimum liability, at least $300,000. Nobody should ever be less. Number 4, whatever number I'm on. Deductible, keep it at $1,000. Don't like $1,000 because that's a sweet spot. That's where you can save some money. Nobody in America should ever have a deductible on their auto insurance of less than $1,000. Homeowners insurance less than $5,000. Y'all be amazed at how many people are paying higher premiums because they have such low deductibles. Like a lot of people leave a lot of money on the table for the insurance companies because they have low deductibles. Now, sidebar, I told a person recently that if they just increased their homeowner's insurance deductible by $5,000, it would save them $800 a year. Do you know that person said, but if I have to file a claim, I have to come up with $5,000. Honey, you've not filed a claim in over 15 years.
Right. So you will have made that and more.
You have made that and more. And then last but not least is this. Do not, be very realistic about how much money you need to start over in the event of a total loss. I have seen people just say, I just want $5,000. Then there's a loss. Well, after you buy a brand new bed, a new desk, new dining room table and chairs, bath towels, clothes, underwear, panties, bras, some skincare products, you've already spent $5,000 and you still haven't gotten to the stuff that was really more important to you. And then last but not least is this, inventory your stuff. Inventory your stuff. A lot of companies, if there's a loss, they are still requiring people to write down the name of the book. How many books did you have? What's the name of the book? You said you have an L-shaped electronic desk. Well, how much did you pay for that? What's the brand? What year did you buy it? Your TV. What brand was the TV? How many inches? Where did you buy it? How much did you pay for it? The pots, the pans, the dishes, the soaps, the towels. Inventory, all of that. I even in the California fires, there were after the initial shock was over, every insurance company required people to inventory the stuff that they lost.
And it's difficult to inventory stuff when it's not physically present.
So start inventory yourself, take photos, take videos, and, store that either somewhere in the cloud, someplace where you can get to it, because you just never know now. And that's and then last but not least is this, get renter's insurance, whether you're required or not. Your landlord is not legally obligated to compensate you one dime for anything that happens to that property. that
Mhm.
impacts you.
Yeah.
And I have, in my early days of banking, there was a huge apartment fire in St. Louis. Quite a few of those people were customers of the bank, and all of them were scrambling because the only thing they had was the clothes on their backs.
Mm.
But they did not have the money to go get a new apartment, and they did not have the money to start over.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been a very enlightening conversation. And I know I've been taking notes. I don't know about everybody else out there, but y'all should have been taking notes too. But that's okay because YouTube lets you rewind. So if you weren't taking notes, go back and do it and go back and take notes if you weren't doing it before. Um, but yeah, there's a lot to think about. And a lot of people are like, oh, this is just $150, $200 a month. Why do I even need to really think about it? But there is a lot of thought that needs to be put into it. And thank you for sharing some perspective for people out there who are renting, who definitely need renters insurance.
And I'm going to drop this little bit of nugget. I'm going to tell you all this. If you have not read Justin's book, you need to read that book because that book was really good. That's number one. It's an easy read, very straight to the point. But the thing about Justin's book, because I've read his book, and when I moved back to St. Louis, I wasn't sure. And like everybody else, I had a situation involving COVID where it impacted my credit and my finances, right? So in this apartment building, like I did literally what Justin said to do in the book. But I added a little bit extra because I'm an insurance agent, right? And I wasn't sure if I was going to reopen an agency in St. Louis. But one of the things that I definitely did make sure that the landlord, the property manager knew, oh, I have renter's insurance. Do you want me to add your name onto that? And y'all would be amazed about like how just even saying it before they even tell you can make a huge difference because it adds an extra layer of protection for them as well.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
Doesn't, yeah.
a little inside secret for all those listeners out there. We're going to actually have another entire episode about Earl's experience renting this apartment and the conversations that he had with that landlord and how he got into the apartment that he was able to get into.
But all of my foolishness, honey
Yeah.
child.
So that is something to look forward to. That will be coming up as we go through season 2 of Renter Confidential. Yeah. So Earl, thank you very much for sharing your insurance wisdom and experience. I know we helped a lot of people today. And I will be getting in touch with you for setting up that other episode.
All right. You know how to reach me. You have my phone number in your phone. Oh, and tell your daddy I said, hey.
Yes, I do. I will.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Earl.
You're welcome.
There were so many amazing gems and nuggets from this interview that I simply can't recap them all here. From making an inventory list of your belongings prior to them being burned in a fire, to the value of having your renter's insurance company between you and the landlord's insurance company in the event of property damage. We covered many reasons why renter's insurance is valuable. While in the past, certain coverage like extra expense or minimum liability were included, now it's become important to ask for the coverages you want. As your circumstances change or you decide to take a long vacation, definitely let the insurance company know so you don't return home to find that your insurance policy is no longer in force. And last but not least, choose the insurance deductible amount that gets you the most insurance bang for your buck. Thanks for watching Renter Confidential. Happy apartment hunting. And remember, when it comes to renting, insider information is the best roommate you can ever have.